Welcome to the temple for Rosh Hashanah morning services for this new year, 5782. We begin on page 19 in our High Holiday prayer books with the singing of Matov. Matov. How good they are, these tents of Jacob, how beautiful the homes where Israel dwells. And blessed are all who have a home, and as so many yearn for shelter and for care. And blessed are we who share this house which shelters us, where we belong. This house of Torah, this house of love, our sacred assembly and communal strength. In small and humble rooms and splendid sanctuaries, reaching out today as our people greet the turning of the year. We stand with all of them this morning, grateful that we're alive to meet this day, first dawning of the year. For all of us, no matter where we've traveled to meet this day, come back to celebrate the season of return. Give praise to this morning, give thanks for our gathering, give ear to the ancient call that brings us home. Our hearts rise up in hope, our spirits reach us for new beginnings. Our voices too lift up a melody that celebrates today. How good they are, these tents of Jacob. How beautiful the homes where Israel dwells. And now a message of hope even in these challenging times from Governor Andy Beshear.
Hi everyone, I'm honored to join you virtually today to personally wish each of you a happy and healthy new year. As we reflect on this past year, we can give thanks for how far we've come. The compassion and goodwill of Kentuckians like you saved thousands of lives and delivered us to this brighter day. Now, we look to the new year as we work together to build a better, more inclusive Kentucky. Let us continue to look within as we did this last year and lead with kindness, because together we will not only survive but thrive in the new year and beyond. As my faith teaches me, hatred stirs up conflict, but love conquers all wrongs. As we enter this new chapter, let us create a year full of love, compassion, and understanding. Thank you, and Happy New Year.
Now is the time for turning. The leaves are beginning to turn from green to red to orange. Summer harvests are finished. The old year is fading, but for us, turning does not come easily. It takes an act of will for us to make a turn. It means breaking with old habits. It means admitting that we've been wrong, and this is never easy. It means losing faith. It means starting all over again, and this is always painful. It means saying, I'm sorry. It means recognizing that we have the ability to change, that we're not trapped forever in yesterday's ways. God, help us to turn from callousness to sensitivity, from hostility to love, from pettiness to purpose, from envy to contentment, from carelessness to discipline, from fear to faith. Turn us and bring us back towards you. Hear our prayer. We rise for the Baruch Hu. We continue responsibly. Source of blessing, our eternal God, your power fills the cosmos, shaping light, creating darkness, making peace, and fashioning all things.
In love you bring light to the earth and its creatures. Your goodness renews the creation each day. Infinite, varied, and rich are your works, divine artists. All of them wrought with wisdom. The whole earth is teeming with life. All struck by the universe, work of your hands. Let all life bless you, praise you, and celebrate the beauty of your lives.
May they shine a new light on Zion.
And may we soon be privileged to share that light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. Our praise to you, Adonai, creator of the cosmic lights. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Listen, Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever. Please be seated and join me in the Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta, 8, Adonai Elohecha, b'chol levavcha u'chol nafshecha u'chol me'odecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, uvlechtecha v'derech, u'shochvecha u'kumecha, u'kshartam la'ot al yadecha, v'hayu l'totafot beinenecha, Uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha.
Amen.
rise now. We read together on page 22.
From Egypt you redeemed us, Adonai our God, and from the slave house you set us free.
For this, the people who felt your love exalted you, and the ones whom you found precious sang hymns of praise, blessing, and thanks. To the living God who reigns forever, high and exalted, inspiring wonder, who humbles the proud and raises the lowly, who frees the captive and redeems the oppressed, and sustains the poor. God responds to the cry of our people, their prayer in time of need. Sing praise to God Most High, most blessed source of blessing. As Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang this joyous song to you. For the Tefillah, page 23. May every effort to pray from the heart, even if you do not succeed, the effort is precious in the eyes of the Eternal One. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el, Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei HaKol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula livnei v'neihem l'ma'an Shemo ba'ahava, Zachrenu l'chaim melech hafetz b'chaim v'chotvenu b'sefer ha'chaim l'ma'ancha Elohim chaim melech ozer u'moshiach u'magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. You are the source of blessing, Adonai, our God, and God of our fathers and mothers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob, God of Sarah, God of Rebekah, God of Rachel, and God of Leah. Exalted God, dynamic in power, inspiring awe. God sublime, creator of all, yet you offer us kindness. Recall the loving deeds of our fathers and mothers, and bring redemption to their children's children, acting in love for the sake of your name. Remember us for life, sovereign God who treasures life. Inscribe us in the book of life for your sake, God of life. Sovereign of salvation, pillar of protection, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Blessed are you in our lives, Adonai, shield of Abraham, sustainer of Sarah.
Say
Your life-giving power is forever, Adonai, with us in life and in death. You liberate and save, cause dew to descend, and with mercy abundant, lovingly nurture all life. From life to death, you are the force that flows without end. You support the falling, heal the sick, free the imprisoned and confined. You are faithful even to those who rest in the dust. Power beyond power, from whom salvation springs, sovereign over life and death, who is like you. Merciful God, who compares with you? With tender compassions, you remember all creatures for life. Faithful and true, worthy of our trust, you sustained our immortal yearnings. In you we place our undying hopes. Baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hakol, wellspring of blessing, power eternal. You are the one who gives and renews life. We continue with these words of Unatan Tokef. Together at the bottom of page 25.
You are everything that we praise you for, slow to anger, quick to forgive. You do not wish the death of sinners, but urge them to return from their ways and live. Until the day of death you wait for them. You accept them at once if they return. Since you created us, you know our impulses. We are but flesh and blood.
You are holy, your name is all. There is nothing divine beyond you. As the prophet Isaiah taught, the source of all might is exalted through justice, the God of holiness made holy through righteousness. Baruch atah Adonai hamelech hakadosh. Blessed are you, Adonai, holy sovereign. Please be seated. You chose us with love to be messengers of mitzvot, and through us you made known your aspirations. Among all the many peoples you gave us a pathway to holiness. Among all the great nations you uplifted us and made yourself our sovereign. And so we seek you and serve you and celebrate our nearness to your presence. Your great and sacred name has become our calling. In your love, eternal God, you have given us this day of remembrance, a day for the shofar's joyful sound, a day of sacred assembly, a day to be mindful of our people's outgoing from Egypt. Our God and God of the generations before us, may a memory of us ascend and come before you. May it be heard and seen by you, winning your favor and reaching your awareness, together with the memory of our ancestors and the memory of your sacred city, Jerusalem, and the memory of your people, the family of Israel. May we be remembered for safety, well-being, and favor, for love and compassion, for life and for peace on this day of remembrance. Please join me responsively. Zochreinu Adonai Eloheinu bo l'tova.
Amen.
Ufokdeinu bo livracha.
Amen.
V'hoshienu bo l'chaim.
Amen.
Eternal our God, remember us.
Amen.
Be mindful of us.
Amen.
And redeem us for a life of goodness and blessing.
Amen.
We continue at the bottom of page 28. God, who is ours, and God of our fathers and mothers, lead us to holiness through your mitzvot, and may each of us find a portion of Torah that is ours. You bestow such goodness, teach us to be satisfied, and to know the joy of your salvation. Help us to serve you truly with purity of heart, for you are a faithful God whose truth stands forever. Baruch atah Adonai melech al kol haaretz, mekadesh Yisrael v'yom hazikaron. Our praise to you, Eternal One, whose power pervades all the earth. You bring holiness to the people of Israel and to this day of remembrance. Eternal our God, your people Israel yearns for your favor. Receive their prayers with loving acceptance, and may you always desire your people's worship. Divine One, close to all who call upon you, bring your grace and presence near to those who serve you. Pour forth your Spirit on us, and may our eyes see your merciful return to Zion. Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir shechinato l'Tzion. Blessed are you whose divine presence is felt again in Zion. Please join me.
And for all these gifts, God of majesty, may your name come to be blessed and praised. Our gratitude a daily offering until the end of time. Inscribe your covenant partners for a life of goodness, and may all life resound with gratitude and faith in praise of your name. God, you free us and strengthen us. Baruch atah Adonai, atov shimcha ulecha na'eh leodot. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose goodness deserves thanks and praise.
Our God, divine presence, whose path our ancestors walked, bless us now with the words first bestowed on Israel in the time of Moses and Aaron, the threefold blessing given us through Torah that joins our hope with theirs. May you know God's blessing of shelter and care. May it be so. May you receive the light of God's kindness and grace. May it be so. May you see God's favor and goodness, and may you partake of God's peace. May it be so. Let there be peace, grant goodness, blessing, and grace, constancy and compassion to all of Israel, your people. Avinu, bless and unite all human beings in the light of your presence. For your light has shown us a holy path for living, devotion to love, generosity, blessedness, mercy, life, and peace. In your goodness, bless your people Israel with peace at all times. Let us and the whole family of Israel be remembered and inscribed in the book of life. May it be a life of goodness, blessing, and prosperity. May it be a life of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, oseh hashalom. You are the Blessed One, eternal source of shalom.
Shalom.
take now a moment of silent prayer.
Please rise as we turn to page 31 for the Avinu Malkeinu. We read responsively, Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, hear our voice.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu, Ve'al Olaleinu V'tapeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our families.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kale Dever V'cherev Ve'ra'av Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kale Kol Tsar U'mastin Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kotveinu Besefer Chayim Tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us the year of goodness.
Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Va'aneinu, Ki en banu ma'asim, Ase imanu tzedakah v'chesed ve'oshi'einu.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu.
seated. When first we appeared on the stage of world history, a book was in our hands. This book, this sacred scroll, and we were told, this is very near to you, in your mouth and in your heart. And we were told, you can surely do it. And then we learned, this is where heaven and earth touch. Adonai, God compassionate, gracious, endlessly patient, loving and true, showing mercy to the 1,000 generation, forgiving evil, defiance and wrongdoing, granting pardon. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'Norah Shemo. One and magnificent is our God. God's name is holy, inspiring all. Turn to page 34 for the blessing before reading from the Torah.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolom Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'tan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen.
Vayhi achar hadevarim ha'elef b'cha Elohim nisa et Avraham Vayomer elav Avraham Vayomer hineni Vayomer kachna et bincha et jehidcha asher habta et Yitzhak lech lecha al eretz hamoriah v'chalehu sham lelah al chad hacharim asher omar elecha Vayashkem Avraham baboker Vayachavosh et hamoro Vayikach et shnei aravito Ve'eitzak mino Vayavakach atzei olav Vayakom vayelech el hamakom Asher amar lo ha'Elohim Vayom hashlishi Vayisa Avraham et einav Vayar et hamakom merachok Vayomer Avraham el ne'arav Shivu lachem po im chachamor Bani v'chanachar Ne'oha ad ko V'nishachaveh ben ashuva alehem
ויקח אברהם את יצא העולה וישם על יצחק בנו ויקח בידו את האש ואת המאכלת והלכו שניכם יחדן ויאמר יצחק על אברהם אבין ויאמר אבי ויאמר הנני בני ויאמר הנה האש וחייצים ויעשה לעולה ויאמר אברהם אלוהים ויראה לו עשה לעולה בני והלכו שניכם יחדן ויבואו על המקום אשר אמר לו האלוהים ויבן שם אברהם את המצבח וירק את העצים ויקוד את יצחק בנו וישם אותו על המצבח ממעל העצים וישלח אברהם את ידו ויקח את המאכלת לשחוט את בנו
ויקרא מלאך אדוני אל אברהם שנית מן השמיים ויאמר דין נשבעתי עם אדוני כי ואן אשר עשית את הדבר הזה ולא הסחת את בנך יחדיך כי ברך אברהם והרבה את זרעך ככוכבי השמיים וכחו אשר על שפת הים ועשה זרעך את צבא אויבה והתברכו בזרעך כל גויי הארץ עקב אשר שמעת בקולי ויסב אברהם אל נעריו, ויקומו וילכו יחדיו אל באר סבא, וישב אברהם בבאר סבא.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Page 36 to read from the Haftarah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar bנביאים טובים ורצה בדבריהם הנאמרים באמת. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו ובישראל עמו ובנביאי האמת וצדק. Thus said the Eternal, the people escaped from the sword, found favor in the wilderness. When Israel was marching homeward, the Eternal appeared to me of old and said, with eternal love I have loved you, therefore I continue my grace to you. I will build you firmly again, O maiden Israel. Again you shall take up your timbrels and go forth to the rhythm of the dancers. Again you shall plant vineyards on the hills of Samaria. Planters shall plant and live to enjoy them. The day is coming when watchmen shall proclaim on the heights of Ephraim, come, let us go up to Zion, to the Eternal our God. For thus said the Eternal, cry out in joy for Jacob, shout at the crossroads of the nations, sing aloud in praise and say, save, O Eternal, your people, the remnant of Israel. I will bring them in from Northland, gather them from the ends of the earth, the blind and the lame among them, those with child and those in labor. In a vast throng they shall return here. They shall come with weeping, and with compassion will I guide them. I will lead them to streams of water by a level road where they will not stumble. For I am ever a partner to Israel. Ephraim is my firstborn. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות. האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום הזיכרון הזה, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך. יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד, ודברך אמת וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל ויום הזיכרון. And we turn now to page 38 for the part about hearkening to the voice of the shofar. Please join me as we say together, Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו לשמוע קול שופר. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, summoning us to hear the sound of the shofar. Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, giving us life, upholding the life within us, and bringing us to this time. תקיע, שברים תרועה, תקיע, תקיע, שברים תקיע, תקיע, תרוע, תקיע, Today the world is born anew. This day the whole of creation stands before you to be judged. As we are your children, love us in the way of mothers and fathers. As we are yours in service, guide us by the light of your justice, grace, and holiness. Let the wishes of our lips, our heart's desire, be pleasing before you, God Most High. You are knowing and attentive, watchful and aware when we call out Teki'ah, lovingly, favorably receive our prayer of Malchuyot. Please join me as we read together on the top of page 39. God of remembrance, remember the covenant
of our ancestors. We reaffirm it today. Remember, we are a people of noble ideals. Help us attain them. Remember all your people, all the nations on the road to peace. Bless their efforts. Remember with mercy the binding of Isaac, the sorrow of Sarah, Abraham's words, "Here I am." Our memory fades, but you remember all that we have forgotten. Your presence is a throne where all things matter and nothing is lost. Baruch atah Adonai, zocher habrit. Blessed are you, Adonai. You remember the covenant. You remember us.
Tekiah. שברים תרועה, תקיע, תקיע, שברים, תקיע, תקיע, תרוע, תקיע, Today the world is born anew. This day the whole creation stands before you to be judged. As we are your children, love us in the way of mothers and fathers. As we are yours in service, guide us by the light of your justice, grace, and holiness. Let the wishes of our lips, our heart's desire, be pleasing before you, God Most High. You are knowing and attentive, watchful and aware when we call out Teki'ah. Lovingly, favorably receive our prayer of zichronot. Baruch atah Adonai, shomea kol truat amo Yisrael berachamim. Blessed are you in our lives, Adonai. You hear with love the shofar, true voice of your people Israel. Teki'ah. Shevarim truah. Tekiah, Tekiah, Shevarim, Tekiah, Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah Gedolah, Today the world is born anew. This day the whole of creation stands before you to be judged. As we are your children, love us in the way of mothers and fathers. As we are yours in service, guide us by the light of your justice, grace, and holiness. Let the wishes of our lips, our heart's desire, be pleasing before you, God Most High. You are knowing and attentive, watchful and aware. When we call out Tekiah, lovingly, favorably receive our prayer of Shofarot. A prayer for our congregation. Eternal presence, who blessed our mothers and fathers, bless this holy congregation, a house of study, prayer, and righteous deeds. Together we give thanks for our leaders, those who learn, teach, and uphold the Torah, inspiring others to learn, teach, and uphold the Torah. Those who do the sacred work of building our community, may their service bring them joy, fulfillment, and purpose, and may they go from strength to strength. For our members, diverse in age, interest, and background, and those of other faiths who join with us, all who offer their time and talent, their love and commitment. And for our country, God of holiness, we hear your message, justice, justice you shall pursue. God of freedom, we hear your charge, proclaim liberty throughout the land. Inspire us through your teachings and commandments to love and uphold our precious democracy. Let every citizen take responsibility for the rights and freedoms we cherish. Let each of us be an advocate for justice, an activist for liberty, a defender of dignity, and let us champion the values that make our nation a haven for the persecuted, a beacon of hope among the nations. May our actions reflect compassion for all people within our borders and abroad. May our leaders and officials embody the vision of our founders to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessing of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. A prayer for the state of Israel. Avinu, you who are high above all nations, states, and peoples, Rock of Israel, the one who has saved us and preserved us in life. Bless the state of Israel, first flowering of our redemption. Be her loving shield, a shelter of lasting peace. Guide her leaders and advisors by your light of truth. Instruct them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who build and protect our holy land. Deliver them from danger. Crown their efforts with success. Grant peace to the land, lasting joy to all our people. And together we say, a precious teaching I have given you, my Torah, do not forsake it. A tree of life to those who hold it fast. All who embrace it know happiness. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Take us back, Adonai, let us come back to you. Renew our days, the days of old.
What's past is prologue, what to come in yours and my discharge. These words, first spoken by William Shakespeare in The Tempest, frame the first words of the prologue of a new book about our nation's future by Robert Putnam called The Upswing. Shakespeare's words alone would form a worthy beginning for a High Holy Day sermon, since forgiveness and repentance are the prime themes of The Tempest. What Shakespeare means by these words is that everything up until this moment has merely set the stage for us to write our own destinies. What Putnam means by beginning his book with these momentous words is that we stand today as a nation on the precipice of a new and better age, if only we as a nation can reach out and embrace that destiny. The Upswing is the masterwork of a lifetime of research in demography and American life by Harvard professor and best-selling author Robert Putnam. In it, Putnam and his partner in research, Shaylin Romney Garrett, plot the course of an American life over the past 125 years, from the Gilded Age of the 1890s until today. And what they found is that along the lines of economics and politics and society and culture, America's traveled along an inverted U-shaped curve from I to we to I, in an inexorable path from the radical age of individual freedom and selfish concern for individual needs towards a greater commitment to communal values and the responsibilities of citizenship. And then we travel back again. And the upshot of the Upswing is that these same inexorable forces which have brought us to this day stand poised to propel us into a new, more community-oriented age for the future. The Gilded Age marks the tumultuous years between the Civil War and the turn of the 20th century. Mark Twain, the great writer and political commentator of that age, gave those years their name in a novel called The Gilded Age. In it, he described an America more prosperous than ever before, with unprecedented growth in industry and technology, but at the same time, an era of serious social problems, masked by the thin gold gilding of economic expansion. A time of vast income inequality, racial strife, religious intolerance, political gridlock. An unregulated age where huge corporations wielded vast control over the lives and livelihoods of small business and individual Americans. Immigrants were clamoring at our doors to fill the jobs of this rapidly expanding economy. Many of our ancestors were those immigrants. And yet a growing concern over the changes these immigrants might bring to American life and the changes brought on by the industrialization itself began to eat away at our sense of common cause and the very value which had made our nation great. It was a time when Americans were increasingly concerned about their own rights, their own prosperity, and held little regard for the responsibility of citizenship, or our common future together as a nation. By the time Putnam is done with his description of the Gilded Age, those years sound frighteningly familiar, like a fractured mirror image of our America of today. And then, sometime around the turn of that century, America began to change, ushering a great revival in virtually all aspects of American life. Over the course of the next 60 years, a period punctuated by a global pandemic and 2 world wars, America found her way back to the values of community and shared responsibility. We increasingly became a land of political compromise and growingly recognized the inequities in society which we had long needed to address. Income inequality was cut in half through the efforts of government trust busting, progressive income taxes, and the growth of unions which strengthened the hands of workers in this new industrial age. Education rates, which opened the door to economic prosperity, began to skyrocket due to local efforts to increase high school graduation, and the GI Bill, which afforded college education to an entire generation who had served our country and now come home. Public health initiatives after the devastating flu epidemic of 1917, and a national charitable campaign to eradicate polio helped drive infant and child mortality rates into steep decline, while life expectancies began a meteoric rise. The contentious politics which had made cooperation and compromise between bitter rivals all but impossible gave way to increasingly bipartisan legislation in Washington, with Congress working together regularly and restoring faith in government along the way. The national press was filled with articles about Democrats and Republicans working together for the common good, and local elections increasingly emphasized the quality of candidates and their local concerns, and previously unheard of split-ticket voting for Congress and the president soon became a common feature of American politics. America became again a nation of joiners, with a record number of new national organizations being formed for the sake of society and the common good. Civic involvement and volunteer life blossomed to unheard of levels, with religious affiliation and involvement in churches and synagogues leading the way. Americans of all classes and cultures were attending meetings, attending services. Even Jews were coming to temple on a regular basis. And charitable giving expanded across wide levels of income. The books we read, the concerts we attended, the magazines we published, the sermons we preached were increasingly filled with the values of community and the virtues of the common man, the importance of responsibilities over rights, and the shared values and common destinies that make our nation one. All these unfolding trends towards common cause and common values are laid out in quantifiable numbers, graphs, and charts with remarkable insight. The radical individualism of the Gilded Age faded from our national mindset, giving way to a more balanced value of rights and responsibilities, and an ever-expanding vision of liberty and justice for all. But then, sometime in the 1960s, the tide began to change. John F. Kennedy's famous challenge, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country," may have sounded at the time like a clarion call to place shared interest above self-interest. But from the perspective of history, we can now see that this era of cooperation was already coming to a close. The tumultuous times of the late 60s and 70s fractured the aura of shared responsibility and common destiny, and slowly at first, but steadily, we began a long descent along those same four lines of economy, politics, society, and culture, away from the we-oriented society which together we had built. Reversing the community-minded trends of the previous 6 decades, we returned toward that I-oriented America, descending into what Putnam calls our second Gilded Age. We became again a hyper-partisan society where fabulous wealth abides amidst abject poverty, engaged in seemingly endless culture wars, and steadily declining civic involvement in our increasingly secular America. An America where individual rights have become enshrined even to the clearest detriment of the common good. An America where bipartisan cooperation is a dirty word. And even in the face of a global pandemic, the foundations of public health have become a pawn in the game of politics and culture, where individual rights are cherished above our very lives and the critical needs of our common good. Other historians have identified what they called pendulum swings in certain aspects of American life. What's new in the upswing is the scope and the depth of this study. It's not just that economic, political, social, and cultural trends swing back and forth over time. It's that all these forces have been moving along parallel curves for the past 125 years in American history. And unlike the actual pendulum, which naturally is affected by forces like gravity, drawing it to swing back and forth over time, these shifts of value could in theory go on forever in either direction. America could continue to become ever more self-centered until we tore this nation apart. Or we could move continually towards a more community-minded society until we became some sort of communist state. And yet, we don't. There seems to be a natural point of return. And according to Putnam, we have reached that moment, here and now. Robert Putnam is a social scientist. He's not a biblical prophet of old like Isaiah or Jeremiah or Jonah, whose immortal words we read on these high holy days. He can't foretell the future, but then again, neither could they. The prophets of the Bible did not predict the future, because as Jews we believe in our ability and responsibility to choose that path for ourselves. Rather, they plotted for us the course of our journey, how the choices we've made have brought us to this day, and showed us the future that journey would hold, challenging us to choose a better future, to set our sights towards a greater destiny of blessing for us and our posterity, and for our people as a whole. Robert Putnam's Jewish too, and this is exactly what his social scientific prophecy is calling us to do, to embrace our destiny by turning our backs on our own Gilded Age, to become once again one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will it happen? We shall see. In biblical times, when they wondered how to tell the difference between a false prophet and one who spoke the truth, they applied a simple rule: wait and see. If a prophet spoke the words that came to pass, they were a true prophet. If their words did not come to pass, well, then they were a false prophet. If we were to apply such a standard to Putnam's prophecy, we would call him a true prophet in record time. But the problem for prophets, then and now, is that our destiny only becomes our own when we choose to embrace it. The Upswing was published less than a year ago, but there are indications that the turn from I to we has already begun. Just 1 month after the book was released, America elected Joe Biden the first moderate candidate to be elected to the White House in decades. Recognizing the extremely partisan nature of the Capitol riot, which sought to overturn Biden's election, the condemnation of this insurrection by more than 80% of Americans across all lines of party affiliation, income, society, and culture represents an unprecedented level of agreement that our commitment to the Constitution and the rule of law matters more than our individual interests or desires. Similarly, while the ongoing debate over masks and vaccines in response to the global pandemic may shine a bright light on our nation's partisan, religious, and cultural divides, the now nearly 80% of Americans who support these scientifically proven means of combating the disease represents a consensus of support for our common responsibility over extreme expressions of personal freedom. And with that, the painful loss of 650,000 of our fellow citizens has taught us a stark and painful lesson on the truly interconnectedness and the nature of all of our lives. And for all the political bickering on constant display in the national press and amplified beyond means online by social media, we have, against all odds, witnessed the passage of a $1 trillion infrastructure bill, the first major bipartisan legislation to clear both houses of Congress in recent memory. Is this the beginning of the great upswing which will carry us forward in the decades to come? We will see. America is not a pendulum. There are no forces of gravity which will inevitably pull us from one extreme towards the other. There's only us and our ability to see the path ahead and to choose a better future for ourselves and our posterity. What can we do? In the last chapter of his book, Putnam lists a number of paths towards a better future, but they all begin here with us. A central component of this new upswing must include the kind of religious revival or great awakening which arose out of the last Gilded Age. In Putnam's words, religious institutions have long been the single most important source of community connectedness and social solidarity in America. And so, we must begin again with a greater commitment to this place, our faith, and the work we do together for the community beyond these walls. There will be challenges to overcome, particularly in the continued distance from this place and from each other due to the resurgence of the pandemic in these days. It will require greater creativity, flexibility, and determination in making a holy congregation which reaches out beyond these walls. And yet, I have faith in our future. Our greater involvement at a distance will soon give way to greater opportunities to work together in the building of a better world. sustaining that eternal call to be a just and righteous people, building a just and righteous society for all of us to share. We have learned some lessons on the value of community in our lives through these times of peril. Now let us plot for ourselves a new path for our journey, setting our sights towards a greater destiny of blessing for us and our prosperity, for our community as a whole. What's past is prologue. What to come in yours and my discharge. The history of our congregation spans this century-long story of rise and fall and well beyond, now nearly 180 years, as a beacon of faith and of learning and commitment to community that we share. It is up to us, L'Dor Vador, from generation to generation. Let us keep this holy place strong.
We rise now as we turn to page 45 for the Mourner's Kaddish. Please join me as we read together. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעולמי עולמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו amen. May the source of peace bestow peace on all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, amen. Our closing song is Adon Olam. תקיעה גדולה. Praised are you, Adonai our God, when we act in accordance with your divine commandment to feed the hungry and shelter the homeless, to lift up the fallen and repair the world. Blessed are we, Adonai, our Creator, when we walk in ways of righteousness, when we turn our hearts to compassion and our hands to deeds of kindness. Holy is your name and holy are your children, when we work as partners with you in the building of a better world, fulfilling our purpose to bring healing and justice to all your children, to all your people, to all the world. May this year be a year of blessing. May this year be a year of caring. May this year be a year of justice and of peace. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.